Hello, Revere, and welcome to the February show of the Revere Senior News. I have a special guest, but I also want to introduce my host, the host of the show, Steve Fielding from the Revere Senior Center, and Lieutenant Aaron O'Leary from the Revere Fire Department. Before we speak to the news about Revere, Aaron, I want to say thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
I believe you have some news to tell the folks.
Right, and the first thing I want to let everybody know, did you realize that this is our 30th show?
No, I didn't.
We made it to 30.
Right.
And, you know, that's pretty good.
You still got a long way to go to catch up to my
I will
age,
never
though.
catch up to you. Nobody will ever catch up to you. So anyway, what I want to do, Aaron, usually I start off the show and I just give some updates for the current month that we're taping here, and it happens to be February 2018. First of all, I want to say happy Valentine's Day and happy President's Day to all our Revere seniors out there. Come on down to the Senior Center, right, Morris?
You bet. And they have a good time, and the food is great down there, Aaron. It is.
So because it's winter time and because people tend to lax off on exercise, I just want to point out that we have 3 really nice classes at the Senior Center for seniors, and you go at your own pace. One is a new class, and I encourage people to spread the word as you listen to what it's about. It's called Latin Gold with Miguel, and it's a very invigorating, upbeat, tempo-driven exercise class at your own pace to Latin music. And every Tuesday from 10:15 to 11, that takes place. We also have a great core and balance fall prevention class with Sharon. A lot of people know her because she's been on Revere TV. She's been on this show as well as the Community Veteran Show. And her class is held 3 days a week, Mondays 10:30 to 11:30, and on Wednesday and Friday from 10 to 11 a.m. And the other class I just want to mention is a combination aerobics class. And that's been taught by Nancy for many, many years. And that's every Thursday from 10:30 to 11:30. And just so the people out there know, we're going to have Bill Barron bring back Tai Chi starting March 4th. And that's at 9:30 in the morning. So people have been asking, where's Bill? He had to take a little sabbatical, but he will be back. The other thing I want to mention is we have a special monthly luncheon every month. We have great entertainment. And on February 27th, we'll be celebrating Valentine's Day and President's Day. And we have a special lunch. I believe it's chicken cordon bleu.
I don't speak Russian.
And we have a great entertainer, Joey Bebop, who sings 50s, 60s, and 70s songs. And he does an awesome Elvis impersonation. So that special luncheon, you have to call a day ahead or even a couple of weeks ahead. And it costs $4. So you get a great meal and a great entertainment.
Oh.
All right, so just one other thing before I go through it, and that's key dates, all right? People are always asking me, when is the Senior Book Club? Well, in February, it's February 15th. You can just come. You don't have to call up and say you're on your way. And we have a great group there that meets on the third Thursday of every month, and this is the 15th from 2:30 to 3:30. Also, we have a blood pressure and consultation with our city nurse, Carol Donovan. She is going to be at the Senior Center on February 1st and February 15th from 11 to 12. We also have Mary's Affordable Hearing. Mary Marino has a lot of clients at the Senior Center. She'll be there on the day of the party, Tuesday, February 27th from 10 to 12 p.m. We have Barbara McDonald, who is our chair masseuse. She will be at the Senior Center on the second Monday of the month, which is February 12th. She's usually there around 9:30. No appointments necessary. And the last thing I just want to mention before we get into discussing fire safety for seniors is that our monthly podiatrist clinic is on Wednesday, February 7th. And Dr. Kaplan will be there by 8:30, 8:45. First come, first serve. And that's it.
Right. Now, as we continue the show, if I may say, Steve, since you had the honor of bringing Lieutenant O'Leary to the show, why don't you start off first with her?
Well, first of all, I thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And I know you said before the show, before we came out here, that you've been a firefighter for 13 years.
Yep.
And so the first thing I want to ask you is, what is the name of the project you work on, the program that you go out and speak about?
It's called it's a SAFE program. It's throughout the state of Massachusetts. There's like 243, I believe I read today, communities that are involved in it. It started 23 years ago in the schools with the children, and they've had such great success that 3 years ago, so this will be our 4th year that the Senior Safe program has been around. So they brought it to try to reach the seniors, because the children and the elder population are the most at risk. So to help get us out there and get the message out for safety and.
So that's great.
Yep,
So,
and I just took it over back in May, so I haven't been with this program that long, so now we're trying to revamp it, really get it going, because it's going very well in our schools. So
Great.
now it's time to get out in the community and get the seniors involved.
and Morris and I have talked about this. We wanted to have fire safety tips and prevention methods that seniors can take care of within their home, and this is a great program, and they're the most vulnerable, like you say, at risk. So I know Morris had several questions that he's been researching. So.
Well, I got 2 questions that I want to start on. One in 2006, I believe, I could be off a year, 2006, I believe. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts state law requires that every house have a carbon monoxide or smoke detector.
Yep.
Is that correct?
I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I do agree with you. It was around that time that they made it a law that you must have carbon monoxide detectors, because smoke detectors were big, but they weren't pushing the carbon monoxide detectors.
And the reason I mentioned that, Lieutenant Leary, is because a lot of people who are seniors, and this is a senior thing, do their own cooking. And I understand that cooking is one of the most predominantly fire hazards.
Yeah, it's the.
Could you expand on that for us?
Cooking is the #1 cause of all fires throughout the state of Massachusetts. It's the leading cause of injuries to our senior population. So it's definitely very important to take, you know, cooking seriously and think about safety. So some of the things you can do is you should never leave you cooking unattended. You should always stay in the kitchen when you're cooking. Keep a lid nearby. Anytime there's if there's a fire, a grease fire, you're frying something, you want to slide a lid on it. You also want to make sure that you always wear tight-fitting clothing. You don't want loose clothing hanging around on the burners to catch, you know, to catch on fire. You also want to keep, you know, oven mitts and everything out of the way of the stove so they don't catch.
Right, you can have a hazard. I mean, even if you're not, for example, if I'm, let's say, boiling, making tea, I might not cause a fire, but by picking up the kettle, do I have water coming out on me? Have people got burned before?
Oh, yes, burns one of the #1 injuries.
Of the hot water?
Yeah, from any type of cooking. You know, just touching a hot pan, you forget, you leave it on, there's nothing left in it, you go and grab it. That's why oven mitts
That's
are
what
so
I
important.
was going to mention. That I got an oven mitt. I don't even go unless I have
it.
whether even when I go to the cold water, when I'm putting hot water on the stove and I want to get a cold drink, I never take that mitt off because I might go back and touch the tea kettle when it starts whistling. And that's hot too, by the way.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And that's good that you say that too, because one of our other tips is whenever you're cooking, I mean, we should all stay in the kitchen when we're cooking, but let's face it, we get distracted, the phone rings, I mean, something happens. You should always carry something. So like you keep your oven mitt. You know, now you're standing in the other room, you just hung up the phone, you're like, what was I doing? Oh, I got an oven mitt on. Oh, I must have been cooking, you know.
Great
Keep
reminder.
a spoon in your hand if you're, you know, making a gravy and you walk away, you know.
Well, the elderly, and I happen to be one of them, sometimes, no pun intended, they do forget sometimes, you know. They could do one thing 1 minute and forget it and do something else.
That's why if you keep it with you,
Right.
it reminds you.
So in talking about cooking, I know we just you talked about making sure you have covers and mitts and that kind of thing. So I'm thinking the other part of that is that should a senior get burnt, whether through grease or water popping up while it's boiling and you don't have your hands covered, you know, what is the best thing for them to do in that situation?
I would call 911, get the fire department, you know, EMS started so that they can evaluate it. But then you run it under cool running water for at least 15 minutes
Okay.
for any burns.
Should every kitchen, and I don't, I did, but I don't, because when at the hospital, they took it. Every kitchen should have a fire extinguisher in there? Is that required by law?
It's not required by law.
Okay.
It's kind of a controversial
Voluntary
thing. Like
thing?
if you feel comfortable enough to try to use it, then sure, it's good to have in there. But if you're not comfortable in using it, the best thing to do is to just call 911, have us come down and take care of it. Just get out.
I'm also thinking of other things in the home to help prevent fires. Now, I know a lot of seniors, they jack up the heat because they're cold a lot of times because of medication. But a lot of times electrical cords aren't properly used, and they don't use power bars.
Yep.
And also, sometimes there could be an electrical problem in an outlet that's very old.
Yep.
You know, a lot of the population, the senior population, live alone.
Yep.
So they don't check to see if they're up to code with a lot of outlets too, right?
Yes.
Here's a good one for you, Dawn, and this comes right from your fire department.
Okay.
I was talking to one of your firemen, and when we had the very cold weather where it was -7 there, I turned the gases on. I know what you're going to say. You know what he said to me? That's the worst thing he could do because it burns out the oxygen, number one, and number two, it gives you the carbon monoxide that you're not supposed to have.
Yeah, no, you never want to use
The gases?
the gas stove for heating.
For additional heat.
No, no. I mean, that's why they have space heaters, all that, which even with space heaters, you want to be very careful. You always want to keep a 3-foot distance around it.
Right. But here's what I was going to ask you,
Yep.
Lieutenant Leary.
Sorry.
On space heaters, you have the ceramic kind, and you have the ones that have the orange glow. The orange glow I'm not crazy about because if that tips over and it doesn't have the shut off, that can cause a big
Oh,
fire.
yeah, you want to make sure it
Right.
has a...
The ceramic, I find out where I have pets in the house, pets.
Yes.
They like to lay near the ceramic, but the one that I had before, he used to love to lay near the orange glow. And sometimes I thought his tail was going to get on fire.
Yeah, you got to be very, very careful with all
So what
You
you
know,
portable heaters.
a few years ago, after we had the tornado and we had our roof being repaired during the winter, we had to go without heat for a while.
That's right.
And we were able to obtain some space heaters with the orange glow that you're talking about. And certain seniors, you know, could take the coolness, but others couldn't. So I would go around and put space heaters around the tables where they would be sitting during the day. And I always said to them, you know, it's not just the orange glow that can burn you. It's the machine itself.
It gets hot,
Gets
yeah.
very hot. Watch your legs. Don't go down and touch it.
Yep.
If you're changing the dial, be very careful.
You should always shut it off and let it completely cool down before you're ever going to move it.
Right, exactly.
And should you leave it, if you need an electric heater, is it good to leave it on overnight or shut it off before you go to bed?
If you're home and you need it for heat,
Right.
say you could leave it on, but I would never leave it on when nobody's in the home.
Right.
You know, but that's why they say the 3 feet. So you want 3 feet cleared around it on all sides, so
right.
that there's nothing that's going to catch on fire while you're there.
So, Lieutenant, what would you say for the senior population, since that's our audience, is the most common cause of problems relating to fire safety? Is it the cooking? Is it the space heaters, or what?
I would definitely say cooking.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a lot of issues due to fires because of the space heaters. It's always, cooking is, I mean, it's #1 across the board.
Now, a lot of seniors, you know, still smoke too. So smoking,
yes.
do you see the reoccurrences of that? Is that kind of tapered off since people are now kind of weeding off the smoking part of their activities?
It's still common. It still comes up. I mean, we don't see a lot. Usually it's from a careless disposal of it,
Yep.
which is why it's very important if you do smoke, smoke outside. You know, you don't want to smoke in bed.
Right.
And that sort of stuff. Always make sure that it's put out. You know, even use water, soak it down. You don't want to just throw it out with combustibles around. And a big thing too is if you're on home oxygen, if you have home oxygen, you never want to smoke around, you know, when you're using oxygen. You also don't want anything around the tank that could, you know, cause a fire.
I understand. Yep.
Right. I have a question for you. A lot of the smoke detectors that come on the new houses,
Yep.
are wired electrically.
Yes, hardwired.
But every one of them does have a battery backup in case the electricity
Just-
goes off.
That is correct.
How often should you change or check the battery?
You should check them the rule of thumb is, you know, every time we change the clocks.
Once a
you
year
should-
then?
Twice a year.
Oh,
Twice.
twice
We
a
do the
year.
clocks twice a year, yeah. So every time you change your clocks, you should just change the batteries in your smoke detectors.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you should have one at each level of the floor. If you live on a two floors, 3 floors, you
Yep, you
should
should have a smoke and carbon combination detector on every livable level of your home.
Now, a lot of people have furnaces, obviously, and gas water heaters, and sometimes the pilot goes out.
Yep.
And I'm sure that a lot of seniors get confused, or they don't know how to reset that pilot, and that can be pretty fatal as well. And
yeah, I mean, if that goes out, you can always just call the fire department too. We can come down, make sure that everything's really turned off.
You know, I heard on the news in some towns, now, the fire department, when they do come down, they charge.
We don't charge.
Not at all?
No.
no.
Oh, okay.
No.
And I know seniors that live in many of the elderly units in the city, and I know it is a requirement that they have in their hallways the extinguishers.
Yep.
They also are mandated, I believe, by law to have the sprinkler systems not only in the hallways, but in the unit itself.
Correct.
Correct?
Yeah. Depending on what year the buildings were built, but yes, most of them have the sprinklers
Yep.
and the fire alarm system, which
Yep.
is great because it has the horns inside the apartments, outside the apartments, so you'll definitely hear the alarms going off.
Here's a good thing, Lieutenant Larry. This is Google talking, not me now.
Okay.
They say every 10 years, regardless, you should change the unit of the smoke detector or the carbon monoxide.
Yeah, detectors are only good for 10 years, and I believe
So,
the carbon monoxide is 7 years.
oh, is it?
Yeah, carbon
So,
monoxide
in other words, if
detectors.
you have one of those in the house and it's longer than the 7 or 10 years,
Then you should replace it.
Replace it.
I would also recommend the dual systems. I
Yes.
have them in my own home, and it's a carbon monoxide and fire alarm. And like we were talking before we went on the air, it's voice activated.
Voice activated,
And,
yep.
and whether it be, and when you test it, both tests, it's like you said, it says fire, 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 and it beeps. And then for the carbon monoxide, it will say carbon monoxide, and it'll have a different sound to it, just to make sure that it's working.
I think it's excellent because the way it used to be, it used to just beep. I believe it was 3 beeps for a fire, 4 beeps for carbon monoxide.
Yeah.
But let's face it, who knows the difference between beeps at 2 o'clock in the morning?
That's
so
right.
now at least it tells you, because most people will probably look around and say, oh, there's no fire, when it was actually for carbon monoxide.
And when somebody forgets to change the battery, it's always 2 in the morning or
Oh,
3 in the
yes.
morning when you
Yep.
hear that beep, beep.
Well, now
It starts to go off.
the new detectors now are 10-year sealed batteries, so any of the battery-operated ones you buy, you don't have to replace the batteries for 10
these are
years. Yep, and it'll do a beep. It'll let you know it's at the end of its life.
He mentioned voice activated.
Yep, voice.
Let me be a devil's advocate. Suppose you are deaf. Is there something that could give you a warning that you have a smoke or thing if you are?
If you were
hearing
hearing
impaired.
impaired, you'd have to have horn strobes. You could get horn strobes, strobes that, so you could see the light. They also
I
have
see.
bed shakers. So there's many different devices you could get to.
And you also
Help alert you.
mentioned something about a detectors that they have that vibrates or something that might.
I'm not sure if they have, well, that's the bed shakers. You
Oh.
attach it to your bed and it would shake the bed
Oh, okay.
when the detector goes off.
Oh, I see.
So when you, this is not relating to fire safety in the home, but I'm sure it relates to a lot of the types of calls that you get these days at the fire department. You always accompany an ambulance. So when somebody calls, like if a senior falls,
Yes.
and somebody or them call 911,
Yep.
the fire department always goes as well.
Correct.
Is that a majority of the calls that you get?
Yes, we have EMS calls make up most of our calls.
And you always, is it a law that a fire truck accompanies an ambulance or meets up with an ambulance?
I don't believe it's a law. I know it's the way our cities run,
Yeah.
and our department, we're all EMTs too.
Yeah.
So.
And I've had you
and
many
we have
times.
we have a fast response.
You
so
are fast.
also, if it's a really busy day and there's sometimes we can get up to 10 ambulances out at once, and it's contracted through Cataldo, so
Yes.
they always have someone on scene. So that's why it's good that we do it the way we do, so that somebody's always responding.
And
Right.
I was just
no,
going to say,
go-
at the senior center, there was a period, well, not lately, but there was a period where I'd be calling 911 pretty consistently, and the fire department was always accompanying a Cataldo ambulance in our city, and they were fantastic, and they were fast.
Yeah.
and they took much needed precautions. And we always have contact information for everybody that attends, so it made it a little bit easier as well. Yeah.
Right. Here's something that I just got off here and I wrote it down. For example, on carbon monoxide, some of the symptoms are, there's about 5 of them. Headaches,
Yep.
nausea, dizziness, confusion, fainting, and the critical ones are unconsciousness, and that could lead to death.
Yes. That's why it's very important to have carbon monoxide detectors, because if you just have a headache, you don't feel good, you go to bed, and you don't know there's carbon monoxide,
You're gone.
the end result. Yes.
Right. But what do you do when you get the symptoms without the unconsciousness or the dead? I mean, for example, let's say you do have a headache and nausea. What do you do in that case? Call 911?
Now, I mean, yes, if you have carbon monoxide detectors, they should be going off, and if you're having those symptoms, you definitely
should call 911?
Oh, if your detector ever goes off saying you have carbon monoxide, you want us to come down. We're the ones with the equipment that we go in and we can tell you if there is carbon monoxide and find the source. And then you would want to go to the hospital and be checked out.
Oh, I see.
But that's why it's very important. I mean, headaches and dizziness or nausea can be anything if you don't have detectors. That's why people who don't have the carbon monoxide detectors don't know enough to call, because you could just, with any sickness you have, sometimes you could have a headache, dizziness, That's why it's very important to have the detector so that you know what it is, because it's colorless, it's odorless.
Right.
You'd have no idea that it was even there.
Okay, here's a good question for you. A lot of the seniors, and I'm talking strictly about seniors, like to hoard things.
Yeah.
Instantaneous, oh God, instantaneous combustion.
Yeah, instantaneous.
Right. What causes that instantaneous combustion? If I may, like people pile clothes up or things in rooms, and is it the heat coming in that starts that up, or is it
the heat? So if you had a fire and your house or your apartment heated up to the temperature where it could ignite, then it would. I mean, it's not going to. If you have, some papers on the table, I mean, they're not going to. The heat has to be there.
I know this may not be possible, but it could happen. It could happen. A lot of the seniors use magnifying glass with their glasses to read. I happen to be one of them. By accident, is it possible to take that magnifying glass, put it on the table, or put it on a little angle where the sun is coming in? The sun may not be there now, but as the sun moves to hit that and set in a big, sharp brightness that could cause a fire? I know it's a hypothetical.
I don't really know enough about magnifying glasses to say that.
No, but you can cause a fire with a magnifying glass.
I would think it could start an ember.
You think so?
Well, I think in certain circumstances. So we have about a little under 5 minutes left, right?
We got 4.5 minutes.
I just like to ask a couple of quick questions in general.
Go
First
right
of all,
ahead.
thank you for being a firefighter in Revere. You're much knowledgeable, and I know that most of you are EMT trained.
Yes.
And I just had a question about continuous education on things that are happening that are new.
Yep.
So are you required to take certain courses?
We have to take a number of courses. We have to achieve a certain number of points to recertify every 2 years.
Okay.
So we, as a department, on a monthly basis, Cataldo gives us training classes on different topics that we have to hit throughout the year. So we're on a monthly basis, always staying on top. And then we do a refresher every 2 years that brings us up to date on any changes with like CPR is always changing. They always, so it keeps us up to date. And then we retest.
Okay. Just another general question. As a female firefighter in Revere, how many firefighters are there, and what percentage approximately are female?
In Revere, I think right now, I don't know if we're maybe around 100, 103, and there is only 2 of us.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Just 2 females?
2 females. Yep. We have another female lieutenant, Ginny Segui. But that's it, just 2 of us.
We have 3.5 minutes, and I want you to take at least 3 minutes, so I'm going to ask you a question. If a person, what's the age limit of that you can become a fire?
They got rid of the age limit, I'm pretty sure of.
You mean there's no age limit?
I don't believe there is an age limit anymore, no.
And what are the requirements then? Like if a person, like let's say a young man wants to come in out of the service, a veteran, and he wants to join the fire department.
They got to take the civil service test, which is a written and then a physical exam. And once they pass that, they can get on a list with the city.
And how long is the course when you take
The academy, you mean?
Oh,
Right.
the academy is, well, when I went it was 12 weeks, but I think they're down, they might be 9 weeks now.
And is Revere still looking for fire department?
Right now, we actually just put on, oh, I don't want to get this wrong, I believe we just put on 4 or 5, and I think we're going to be putting on about 6 more.
Okay, Lieutenant Leary, we got 2.5 minutes. Just leave me 30 seconds. You could have the extra 2. Whatever you want.
In other words, they want you to summarize whatever you want here.
Right.
Oh, I got you, I got you. So I want you guys to at least take away from it, we talked about the cooking safety. Also, another big topic is home safety. So make sure that you have your electrical cords. If you're running lamps, make sure that they're not where you walk. You want to make sure that you have non-slip mats in the bathroom. You want to keep your stairs free. Always take your time. There's no rush. Make sure your home's well lit.
Yeah, these are all things we talked about
Things
actually in the
to-
last show. We
Yep.
talked
Right.
about fall prevention, and some of these things may cause a fire if you.
Yeah. Well, and just fire's a big thing too, but we also want to help, prevent the injuries from falls and.
Right.
Right. Here's something else, though. If animals can get into the attic, like squirrels and things, and they like to chew on wires,
Wires,
some of
yeah,
them, and
yeah.
if the wire's are frayed, that can cause
Cause
a
of
fire, too.
Yeah, no, it can. So it's important, if that's noticed, to make sure you get it fixed or get your
Right.
attic closed up.
Okay. So I want to say, Lieutenant Leary, it was an honor and a pleasure to have you come up here.
Well, thank you so much for
Thank
having
you,
me.
and God bless you, and keep you safe. That's the
Thank you.
most important thing.
And I just want to let seniors know, in wrapping up, right, that we will have Lieutenant Leary come down to the Senior Center. We've already got plans for a couple of different times during the upcoming months, and she will speak to seniors at the Senior Center to talk about some of these topics that
Different
we've done.
topics.
And also, we always talk about preventative methods for one, to prevent falling, one, to prevent fires, safety in the home. We've had the police department, community department come down. So we will have Lieutenant Leary come down as well.
Right. I want to thank everybody, for the people of Revere, for listening. God bless the people of Revere. God bless our great country. But most of all, God bless our veterans and our troops serving our country. And thank you till the next time. And I hope we have another great guest like Lieutenant Leary from the Revere Fire Department. So once more, Lieutenant Leary, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.